All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'll be reviewing Golden Fool by Robin Hobb. This is book number 2 in her Tawny Man epic fantasy series. We've got the other books here. Book number 1, Fool's Errand. I have reviewed this book on the channel previous, so if you want to watch this review before you watch the review for book number 2, all you need to do is type in my last name into your YouTube search bar, and then Fool's Errand, also type that into your YouTube search bar, and that book review will magically appear upon your television screen. I promise you that. So anyway, we're now reviewing book number 2, and this is book number 3. Let's review the covers first. Well, the cover, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. This is a pretty bright, snazzy cover, nice red color with a golden foil little, typeface. Great jacket painting by the artist Stephen Ewell, and I think Stephen Ewell did the cover for book 1 and for book 3. And all 3 books look good on the shelf. Let's put them here in order. They look good together. They all have matching designs. On the back side, we've got the spines that all match up, which was pretty cool. I always give the publisher props when they do all that stuff correctly, because Lord knows, most of the time they don't. But anyway, one of the reasons I wanted to read this book is because, other than it's dope, is because I just met Robin Hobb for the first time about a week ago at Dragonsteel in Salt Lake City, and she signed some of my books. So it kind of inspired me to go ahead and read some more Robin Hobb, and I'm glad I did. Now, this book also has a map inside of it of our fantasy world. It's got this nice little illustration in the front part of it, and then we turn the page and we get this map of our fantasy world, which is actually Alaska. Like, it's in Alaska. A reversed version of Alaska is the fantasy world. That's why I'm wearing the shirt. Also, I grew up in Alaska, so I like that. And turns out Robin Hobb also grew up in Alaska. So there's all those ties to Alaska. Now, so what is this book about? So our main character is Fitz Chivalry, the young man, the coming-of-age story that we read about in the Farseer trilogy, which began with the Assassin's Apprentice. That's where we first meet Fitz Chivalry. We get 3 books in this trilogy, and now we get 3 books in the Tawny Man trilogy, this being book number 2, of Fitz Chivalry and his adventures. Now, it's hard when you're reviewing a middle book or an end book in a fantasy epic. Like, how do you do things to not spoil stuff? So I thought I would read a passage out of the page, which kind of gives us a good glimpse of what's going on without any spoilers, like what's happening with all the characters without spoiling anything. So I will just read this paragraph. In a curious way, it was a second coming of age. This one was not an arrival at manhood, but rather a slow realization of myself as an individual. All of these books are sort of like coming-of-age tales for Fitz Chivalry as he gets older and older and older in this fantasy world. But he's still a young man in this book. Circumstances had plunged me back into the intrigues of the court at Buckkeep Castle. I had the friendship of the Fool and of Chade. Now, Chade was the assassin that Fitz Chivalry was an apprentice to in this trilogy. Anyway, I stood at the edge of a true relationship with Jinna, the Hedge Witch. My boy Hap had flung himself headlong into both apprenticeship and romance, and seemed to be floundering desperately through both. So he's old enough, he's a young man, but he's old enough to have a young boy named Hap. Young Prince Dutiful poised on the lip of his betrothed to the outlander Narkesta, had turned to me as a mentor, not just as a teacher for both skill and wit, but as someone to guide him through the rapids of adolescence to manhood. I did not lack for people who cared about me, nor for folk I deeply cherished, but for all that I stood more alone than ever I had before. The strangest part was my slow realization that I chose that isolation. Nobody writes, Fitz has sunk into this melancholy loneliness, that even his friend, the fool, cannot heal, that even, nobody has, Hap, none of them, he's just sunk into this loneliness. And nobody writes emotional pain quite like Robin Hobb. I mean, on top of just her great world building and her prose, which is just magical and delightful and luscious, I compare her a lot to Tad Williams in the way that her prose is. Nobody, but beyond all that, nobody just writes character-driven fantasy quite like Robin Hobb, especially Fitz Chivalry. When the tale is told through his perspective, you get to see all of his feelings, all of his heartache, all of his triumphs and heartbreaks, and he's just kind of, like he says in the opening of this book, a lonely guy of his own volition. And she really taps into that, and it's kind of like what makes a lot of these books so heartbreaking in a way, is we follow this person who's kind of isolates himself on purpose, but yet remains in all of the political intrigues and dangers of the realm that he's trying to save. So this book is Fitz's journey. Now Fitz is a journeyman assassin. He was in the Assassin's Apprentice as a young apprentice to the assassin. And he's a journeyman assassin, but now he's in Buckkeep Castle, and he's posing as a bodyguard to become the eyes and ears of, for his prince. He's behind the walls. He's kind of like lurking behind the walls of everything, and soon he has to, in a way, he's kind of trying to guide the kingdom away from a civil war. He must, at the same time, he has to keep the prince's secret. Now, the secret could topple the prince from the throne. It could topple the throne and the kingdom altogether, because the prince, of course, as we know, if we're following books one, if you follow, the prince has the magic powers that are similar to Fitz Chivalry's, which are called beast magic, which they can kind of bond to different animals, and they have communication with the animals. And there's more to the magic than that, but that's kind of it in a nutshell. So throughout this book, it seems like the only friend he has is the Fool. That's why every book in the thing is called Fool's Errand, Golden Fool. What's the third one? Fool's Fate. Yeah, it's because the Fool in this really plays quite a big role in all of this story. But the Fool kind of has his own secrets too, like a secret past that can... Well, I won't get into a whole lot of that, but it's earth-shattering, let's just say that. And you couldn't have predicted what it was anyway. And that's kind of the gist of the story. It's just such a great fantasy character study of Fitz Chivalry, what he goes through, and the intrigues of the court, and how he has to kind of pose as this bodyguard, and be kind of reintroduced to a lot of characters that caused him a lot of heartache in the first trilogy. And that's kind of my review. I mean, these books are just magical. They're so well written. As far as like big battles and action scenes and stuff like that, you're never really getting that from Robin Hobb. These are more of just kind of like really succinct drama-based stories in a fantasy land, if that makes sense. I'm not saying soap opera, because that's far from what they are, but it's just a lot of intrigue, a lot of like working behind the scenes, Machiavellian plots, character work, character study of who people are and why they do what they do, set in a fantasy world. Very literary fiction, if I do say so myself. But I love all these books. This is a 10 out of 10, just simply for the writing itself. But anyway, so Fools, Golden Fool, book number 2 in the Tawny Man series. That's my review of that. I stick by it.